for me, this is an important issue because one of the pillars upon which the NDC campaign was run was resistance to corruption and anything related to corruption. I think the campaign was so vehemently done to the point that every Ghanaian was convinced that His Excellency President Mahama was going to be very frontal in his fight against corruption. To that extent, a lot of people identified with the message and they went ahead to vote for him. So there's a great deal of expectation in respect of what he's going to do about that subject matter. And of course, if you cared to, anybody who cared to follow the way things were done in this country, you would come to, you would not come to any other conclusion but the fact that there was heightened perception about corruption in the country. And there were several cases and allegations of corruption in the country. And these are some of the things that inspired the electors to want to go out and vote in their numbers. This is not the first time we are seeing this. In 2008, we saw it reflect in the votes Professor Mills got, and we saw it again in 2024. So it tells you that the subject of corruption is something that is abhorred by almost every voter. And it would drive them to go to the polling stations and vote. So like I said, people are very expectant. They are hoping that something fundamentally different is going to be done about corruption this time around. It's become a rhetoric. Anytime we are going to the polls, every politician, knowing very well that this is a subject matter that appeals to the electorates, would exploit it, say all kinds of things that are pleasant to the ears of the electorates, and then after the election, things take a nosedive. Of course, sometimes some leaders try to hide their inability to fight corruption head-on by creating things that are not effectual. And they will tell you, oh, I brought this, I brought that. But if you ask what the results or outcomes of those things they claim they have brought are, they are unable to say. So for me, the subject of corruption is very important. And again, if you look at how much we are losing to corruption, this is a country that is already constrained by way of resources. And yet, there are allegations that a greater percentage of our resources find their way into other jurisdictions. Illicit outflows of capital from our economy. And these are all functions of corruption. And earned incomes, for the most part, are difficult to be retained in an economy. So what they do is that they look for outlets elsewhere and then they ferry the money or the resources there. And so you would realize that the country suffers in many ways. The easiest manifestation of such a scenario is the weakening of your currency. Because our currency is not convertible in the sense that you can't spend it beyond our shores. Even though the West African Monetary Zone says that the other 8 West African countries that make up the zone can't spend their currencies in these countries. Take your Ghana cedi to Nigeria and you would be surprised that nobody would want to accept that as a means or as a medium for transaction. So our currency is just good within our shores. So we tend to rely on third or vehicle currencies to do our transactions. And this is an import-dependent economy. So a lot of the time we need Forex to do our transactions. And because of our heavy reliance on Forex, anytime there is a short supply of Forex, our currency tends to suffer. And it is because of these illicit outflows that often result in the constraints on the supply side of Forex that would lead us to have weaker currencies and so on. So it's a very important issue. But coming to the specific issue of oral, OSP, and Kenoforiata, let me start with the OSP. I think that fundamentally, the office was well-intentioned, or the creation thereof was well-intentioned. But over the period, the execution of that office has left a whole lot to be desired. And it appears the office is engaged more in PR than it engages in the pursuit of the law. You would realize that this current situation we have, I was a bit shocked at the way the press conference was held. In the first instance, if you look at the Act, Section 3 of the Act tells you what the functions of the OSP are. subsections A and B all the way to C tell you that the OSP is supposed to investigate and prosecute allegations or suspicions of corruption and corruption-related offences under the Public Procurement Act. And then Section B goes to talk about the Criminal and Other Offences Act, and then any other law that the OSP feels that an offence has been committed in which relates to corruption, and the commission of that offence is related to corruption. So the work of the OSP is very clear, that it is supposed to investigate and prosecute allegations of corruption. Now, you come and organize a press conference to tell us that you are going to investigate A or B, but you have not even put your house in order. There are no charges. Of course, I would have expected that you would have done your investigations up to a certain point where you are sure that you can proceed to prefer charges against whoever the suspects are. But you are still in the preliminary stages of gathering your evidence. You have not even gone anywhere. You organize a press conference to declare that somebody is a fugitive. And look, I will never on any day hold brief for Ken Ofori-Atta. I think that he must answer for his sins, and I believe that he has committed some economic sins against this republic. But if care is not taken, and I took the time to go through the preamble of how important corruption and the fight against that is, because if we do not get it right, like Sonny was saying, if we do not get it right this time, the confidence of the Ghanaian public is going to be whittled away forever. And so every chance we have to fight corruption, we must make sure that that surgery is done with precision. So you come out without doing that which you are required to do to announce that somebody is a fugitive. Then the debate degenerates into, oh, you don't have the power to declare anybody fugitive, this is witch hunting. And the real issues that Ghanaians are interested in, which are issues of whether a crime related to corruption was committed in the cases he mentioned, happened or not. But now the conversation is about, oh, he's witch hunting, he has no power to declare anybody fugitive, why did people raid the house of the suspects and so on. So at the end of the day, we tend to focus on the incidentals, and then we leave the main issues that are of interest to the Ghanaian people. And that's why I'm saying that the style of the OSP has left a whole lot to be desired. He engages more in public relations than in the pursuit of the law. Look, what stops the OSP from investing a lot of time and energy into getting the relevant pieces of evidence that you can adduce in court before you then update us? In fact, the Act says that you disseminate the information only to authorities that are relevant to the case you're pursuing. Sharing this with the media, I do not see what effect he sought to have, other than the effect we are getting today or we are seeing today. Now it's become the usual ding-dong between MPP people defending Ken Ofori-Atta and NDC saying, look, allow the OSP to do his work. But the OSP is not giving us a cause to believe that he is really intent on doing that which is right. Look, and I say this bearing in mind the fact that since he came into office, there has not been even a single conviction that he has secured. He has not obtained not even a single conviction. A lot of the time he engages in, theorizing about conspiracies against him. Look, the Kissi Adjabeng case, what happened to it? What was the outcome? Eventually he said he had no power he couldn't proceed with prosecution. What happened to the LaBianca case? So I am hesitant in having fidelity in the ability of this special prosecutor to proceed carefully and, tactically with this particular case. Usually what we see is that anytime there are allegations of corruption involving a public officer or a politically exposed person, he comes, he rabble-rouses, he says the very things we want to hear and goes to sleep. And that's why I'm saying that I have not seen the office of the special prosecutor, especially under Kissi Adjabeng, secure even a single conviction. So I am hesitant in my confidence or in my belief that something good is going to come out of this. My appeal to the presidency, to the president, is that, look, he should be mindful of the history of the OSP, their track record, when it comes to really dealing with issues of corruption. There are other agencies I have absolute faith in when it comes to investigating people like Ken Ofori-Atta. But you see, the danger we run, or we risk, the danger we risk is that if this is not done right, there is no coming back. If it is done, you know, anyhow, and the outcomes are also anyhow, it will be difficult for any other agency to say, I'm going to conduct fresh investigations into the matter. That's why I'm advocating that the other agencies, there is UCO, there is CID, even BNI, they should be tasked by the president to take special interest in the case of Ken Ofori-Atta and everybody else, for that matter, who has either appeared in the oral report or the presidency is convinced has a case to answer. So that thorough investigation is done. You gather the evidence you need to gather before you proceed to be doing the kinds of things the OSP is engaged in. Now, like I said, the claim is that, in fact, in criminal prosecution, he's not even bound to cooperate with you, the OSP. He can tell you that proceed to court and make your case, I'll come and defend myself in court. So these, I call them shenanigans that we saw the OSP display, only have one effect: to water down the relevant issues, reduce this whole important issue to a debate between who is coming after who and whether the OSP has powers to do that which he's doing or not. But the main issue is, has he committed, you know, is he guilty, or I mean, is there a case of corruption for him to answer? Or in the matters that were mentioned, are there cases that relate somewhat to corruption that he needs to answer? I strongly believe that there are sins he committed and he needs to answer. But if we do not do the investigation thoroughly, in a way that, you see, if you want to conduct a surgery, you're always looking for precision. So the kind of surgical precision we require of the case involving Ken Ofori-Atta and everybody else requires thorough investigation. Look, Kissi Adjabeng, we were all loud about it. We said, look, this is a case that is unheard of. How could you have that kind of amount in your room? What job do you do that would entitle you to own that huge amount of money in your bedroom and so on? He came and said all kinds of things, the hefty things he said, got Ghanaians excited. But what came of that case? The case came to naught. So he would speak, rubber, say all the kinds of things that, you know, we want to hear, and at the end of the day, there's no outcome to show. And for me, I'm interested more in the results than in the process. I would have even said that, look, do not update us on the process, update us on the results. That you have done a thorough investigation and you are convinced that Ken Ofori-Atta has a case to answer in respect of the very issues you mentioned. But now you are coming to advertise the process. In the process, you are committing blunders, giving way to whoever is the suspect, to capitalize on those blunders, to, if you wish, dwarf the importance of the case you are about to pursue. And I find that a bit troubling. Because like I said, if we lose this time around, trust me, the confidence of the Ghanaian people in politicians in general is going to wane, and that is a recipe for disaster. It's a threat to our democracy that Ghanaians no longer have faith in any politician to fight corruption. And this is how it begins. And if we do not stop this, and we allow Kissi Adjabeng to proceed at this rate, we're going to end up, you know, in the same manner as we ended with La Bianca, with Kissi Adjabeng, and so on. My plea to the president is, please involve the other agencies. At least they have track records of performance. And his actions are calling into question the relevance or the continued maintenance of this office. We set it up to pursue specific cases related to corruption. And look, the act was carefully couched. It didn't say investigate corruption cases. It says allegations of corruption and then proceed to prosecute. Which means that because of the way or the manner in which corruption is done, it's a very subtle enterprise. It is like you can hardly find people openly engaged in acts of corruption. So it requires painstaking investigation. And you need, look, discretion is of essence when it comes to investigations of cases of corruption or allegations of corruption. But before you could even begin the investigations, you are all over the place, shouting out your lungs, saying that somebody is fugitive, is running away from the law, when you have not even begun the process of investigation. Because for me, I think you would have had to do some preliminary work to get to a certain point before you proceed to invite the person. Because, mind you, he is entitled to refuse to cooperate with you. You can't force him to cooperate with you under the law. All he can tell you is that proceed to court, I'll meet you in court. So if all your investigation is dependent on his cooperation, then we have failed before we could even begin. And that's what I'm saying. Some of these important cases, if care is not taken, and if the rate at which he's going is not checked, we will end up with people feeling that, look, we had an opportunity to deal with a case of corruption and we blew it. And he will come back and tell us that he's suffering from a conspiracy against him by the judiciary. Because all along, when questions of what your performance has been come up, all he says is that he's frustrated by the legal... But why? You did not expect the process to be that easy for you. Anybody accused of a criminal offense has the right to defend himself, and you don't expect that to be easy on you as the prosecutor. That is why you are required to do due diligence, do thorough investigation. So you don't come back and tell us you are frustrated by the way the judiciary is going about their cases. If you had the rock solid case, I doubt the lamentations he expressed to us would have happened. And that's why I am very, very worried that the pattern is beginning to manifest again. Or, if you wish, the way he handled the other cases is the same way he's wishing or planning to handle these other cases. But look, this regime is different. If things happened in a certain way in the past, the paradigm shift we are all aspiring to have requires that things are done differently from the way they were done in the past. But it appears he is not repented from his old ways. The same PR, way of dealing with cases involving corruption is exactly what he's doing. And I think that it's about time we told him that, look, you need to change your style. I understand that some of the individuals he mentioned aside Ken Oforiatta, none of them has even been invited. He's not written to any of them. I can speak specifically to the issue of the MPA boss. He's not written to him, he's not invited him. And yet you go out there and insinuate that it's a subject matter investigation unbeknown to him. Which means, look, you are already raising issues of the right to be heard and the rest to dwarf the very important issue of investigating whatever you claim or you think the person committed. So we need to be very careful. Look, and when we speak about this or the conduct of the special prosecutor, let nobody misconstrue that to mean that we are not expecting that people who are accused of having committed wrongs against this country be dealt with. We are not saying so. But let's do it in a manner that at the end of the day, we can all say that people were made to answer for their sins. Do not allow people, do not create that escape route for them because of your inability to manage the process well. And for me, it is very important. I don't know whether I should tie that in with the dropping of cases against persons by the Attorney General.
Right.
You see, the fight against corruption must not just be seen to be fought. I mean, it must not just be fought, but it must be seen to be fought. That's why everything about corruption is perceptive. And in the fight against corruption, you need to have people think that you are really committed to the fight. For me, whether there is a case for them to answer or not, I would have expected that the Attorney General would allow the courts to make that determination. Because you are coming at a time where there is expectation that people who served in the previous regime will be dealt with or will be taken through the process. Now, if you're dropping charges or cases against people who were standing trial in the previous administration, you disable yourself from pursuing other cases in the minds of Ghanaians. Because what they would think is that when it came to issues involving your party people, you dropped all charges against them. You didn't allow the courts to vindicate them. So coming after other people, it is easy for people to say this is witch hunting and that you are selective in your choice of cases to pursue. I am not saying that the cases that they were answering were worthwhile or not. I'm incompetent to make that determination. But my issue is that if indeed you feel strongly or you felt strongly about their cases not having the weight to stand trial or to survive the court process, I would have expected that the Attorney General will allow these cases to die naturally in the court system. But he knows better. But my only worry is that it sends a certain signal to the Ghanaian public, and it might make it difficult for him to pursue real, for want of a better expression, alleged criminals. Because people would easily say that when it came to your party people, you were quick to drop charges, but you are very determined in pursuing other people. So for me, it places a drag on our collective fight against corruption. I would have expected that the cases be allowed to travel the full length. Criminal prosecutions take time, and when I listen to arguments that suggest that the case lacked merit because they traveled longer periods, there are criminal cases that have traveled even way beyond. And the questions people are going to ask are that the people against whom the charges were dropped, are they the only people, in your estimation, whose cases lacked merit? There are a lot more other people who are not even necessarily politicians. Are you going to drop their cases too? So it creates a whole, lot of chaos around your work, and that would undermine the good intentions you have when it comes to the pursuit of people who have, in your estimation, wronged to this country. Other than that, I await what his next step is going to be. I am fully committed to supporting anybody and everybody who wants to bring people who offended this country by way of corruption to book. I want, and I'm willing to support in any way I can. But let's do it in such a way that at the end of the day, for the first time we can secure convictions. For the first time, Ghanaians can say that, look, we voted for a reason. And in fact, the president has given meaning and effect to the reason they voted for him. But if you allow this process to be this chaotic as we are seeing the OSP do, look, we'll come back to the same position we were in before the 2024 elections.